My name is Ethan Carter, and I never believed in destiny until I met Amelia Collins. To me, life was simple: wake up, go to work, return home, and repeat. Love wasn't a priority. I thought it was just another word people used to decorate their empty lives. But Amelia changed everything. I first met her on a cold autumn evening in London. I was running late from the office, the streets crowded with people rushing home, and that's when I noticed her standing outside a bookstore. She wasn't reading, she wasn't even holding a book. She was just lost in her own thoughts, staring at the sky as if it carried answers no one else could see. Her presence was magnetic. Something about her calmness, her soft brown hair flowing in the breeze, and those hazel eyes that seemed too deep for this world, it all pulled me in. I didn't speak to her that day. I just walked past her, but for some reason, she stayed in my mind longer than she should have. The next evening, I saw her again. Same place, same bookstore, same distant look in her eyes. This time, I gathered the courage to say something. "Excuse me," I said nervously, "are you waiting for someone?" She turned to me, a little startled, then smiled politely. "No, just thinking." Her voice was soft, like a gentle tune you'd want to hear again and again. "About what?" I asked, immediately regretting how nosy I sounded. To my surprise, she laughed lightly. "About everything. Life. Choices. Mistakes. People." That was the first time Amelia and I spoke. Just a few sentences, but enough to ignite something in me. Over the next few weeks, I found myself going back to that bookstore at the same time every evening. And every evening, she was there. Sometimes she was reading, sometimes just standing quietly, and sometimes sipping coffee from a paper cup. Slowly, I began to join her. We'd talk about random things: books, music, favorite cities, dreams, and even silly topics like what would you do if you won £1 million. Her thoughts fascinated me. She wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. She had this rare ability to notice small things, like how a child's laughter could brighten up a dull street, or how the golden sunlight hit the rooftops at exactly 5 p.m. She paid attention to things the world often ignored. But what surprised me the most was how often she thought about people. Not herself, not her problems, but others. She'd tell me about strangers she saw on the train, imagining their lives, their struggles, their hopes. And one evening, she said something that changed me completely. "You know, Ethan," she said, "sometimes I wonder if anyone ever thinks about me the way I think about others." I froze at her words. Because the truth was, I thought about her every single day since the first time I saw her. One night, after walking her to the bus stop, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Amelia," I said quietly, "you asked me once if anyone thinks about you. The answer is yes. I do. I think about you, all the time." She looked at me, her hazel eyes wide with surprise. For a moment, she didn't say anything, and I thought I'd ruined everything. But then, a soft smile spread across her face. "I thought about you too, Ethan," she whispered. Those words, they felt like music. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Our evening meetings became the highlight of my life. I learned that Amelia was an artist. She painted emotions on canvas the way poets write them in words. Her paintings were breathtaking, filled with colors that spoke louder than language. One evening, she invited me to her small studio. The walls were covered with her artwork, but one painting caught my attention. It was of a man standing near a bookstore, looking at a girl who was lost in thought. "That's me," I whispered. Amelia nodded shyly. "I painted it after the first time I noticed you walking past me. I didn't know who you were, but I thought about you. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or hold her forever in that moment." Fate had played its card beautifully. We had thought about each other long before we even spoke. But love, as beautiful as it is, comes with its storms. One evening, I arrived at the bookstore, but Amelia wasn't there. The next day, she was missing again. 3 days passed with no sign of her. My chest felt heavier with every hour. I wanted to believe she was fine, but deep inside, fear gripped me. Finally, after a week, she called me. Her voice was weak, trembling. "Ethan. I'm sorry I disappeared. I needed time. Time for what?" I asked, panicked. "To think," she whispered. That was Amelia always thinking. But this time, her thoughts carried pain. For the next few hours after Amelia's call, I couldn't breathe properly. Her voice had sounded broken, fragile, and unlike the Amelia I knew. She always had light in her eyes, even when she was lost in thought. But that night, her words carried nothing but shadows. I couldn't sit still. The next morning, I went straight to her studio. She didn't answer the first few knocks, but finally, after what felt like an eternity, she opened the door. She looked different. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen as if she had been crying, and her shoulders slouched with exhaustion. I wanted to hold her, to take all the pain away, but I didn't want to scare her. "Amelia," I whispered, "what's wrong?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped aside and let me in. The studio was dim, curtains drawn, canvases scattered everywhere. But unlike before, the paintings weren't filled with bright colors. They were dark shades of gray, black, and deep red. Emotions of sadness, fear, and loneliness painted across every canvas. Finally, she spoke. "Ethan, there's something you don't know about me. I wanted to tell you before, but I was afraid you'd walk away." My heart pounded. "You can tell me anything." She took a deep breath, her fingers trembling as she traced the edges of one of her paintings. I was engaged once. His name was Oliver. He wasn't just my fiancé, he was my childhood friend, the person I thought I would spend my whole life with. But things, they changed. He changed." Her voice cracked. I stepped closer, gently touching her shoulder. "What happened?" Tears filled her eyes as she finally confessed. "He broke me, Ethan. He didn't just leave, he destroyed every part of me before he walked away. He told me I wasn't enough. That I was too dreamy, too emotional, too fragile. And the worst part, I believed him. I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I was too much for the world and not enough for the person I loved. my fists clenched at her words. How could someone ever make Amelia feel that way? She was the most extraordinary person I'd ever met. I pulled her into my arms. She resisted for a second but then melted into my chest, crying softly. "You're more than enough," I whispered. "You're everything." For a long time, we just stayed like that, her crying, me holding her, the silence of the room broken only by the sound of her heart against mine. Over the next few weeks, I made it my mission to bring back her light. I took her to places she loved: the bookstore, small cafes, art galleries, even quiet parks where she could just breathe. Sometimes she smiled, sometimes she stayed quiet, but I never stopped trying. One evening, as we sat by the river, she said something that struck me deeply. "You know, Ethan, I thought I'd never let anyone close to me again. But then you came, and it scared me. It still scares me. Because what if I lose you too? What if you wake up one day and realize I'm not enough?" I held her hand tightly. "Amelia, listen to me. I don't think about leaving. I think about you. Every morning, every night. You're not just enough, you're everything I ever needed and didn't know I was missing. If I ever walk away from you, it will only be to get closer." She laughed softly at my words, but her eyes shone with unshed tears. That night, for the first time, she leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for thinking about me. But life has a cruel way of testing love." One day, I received a call from Amelia, her voice shaky. "Ethan, I need you to come. Please." I rushed to her studio. When I arrived, I found her standing in front of her door, pale and trembling. And then I saw him, Oliver. He was tall, confident, and wearing a smile that made my blood boil. "Amelia," he said smoothly, "I just want to talk." She froze, fear written across her face. I stepped forward, standing between them. "She doesn't want to talk to you." Oliver's eyes narrowed at me. "And who are you?" "Someone who cares about her," I replied firmly. He chuckled mockingly. "Cares, Amelia? You really think this stranger can love you the way I did? You're still the same, living in your imaginary world, waiting for someone to fix you." Amelia flinched at his words, and my anger exploded. "Enough!" I snapped. "You don't get to hurt her again. You don't get to stand here and remind her of scars you left. Amelia is not broken. She is not weak. She is stronger than you'll ever be." Oliver smirked but finally backed off. "Fine. But don't come running back to me when he realizes what you really are, Amelia." With that, he walked away, leaving behind silence heavy with tension. I turned to Amelia. She was shaking, tears brimming in her eyes. I held her close, whispering, "Don't listen to him. You're perfect the way you are. And I'll spend every day reminding you until you believe it." That night, Amelia painted again. But this time, the canvas wasn't filled with darkness. She painted two silhouettes standing together under the stars. One of them had their arm protectively around the other. "It's us," she said softly. "Because no matter how much I fear losing you, I also think about how much I've already found in you." And that was the moment I knew I would never let her go. The weeks after Oliver's return were hard for Amelia. Though he was gone, his words still lingered in her heart like poison. Some nights, I'd find her staring out of her studio window, lost in thought, as if battling invisible wars. But slowly, little by little, she began to heal. I noticed it in her smile when she painted again with brighter colors. I noticed it in the way her laughter returned when I teased her about her terrible coffee-making skills. And most of all, I noticed it in her eyes whenever she looked at me, eyes that no longer carried fear, but hope. One Sunday morning, we decided to escape the city and drive to the countryside. The air was fresh, the fields endless, and Amelia looked more alive than ever. She rolled down the window, letting the wind play with her hair, her laughter echoing through the car. "This is freedom," she said, closing her eyes. "For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe again." We spent the day walking through meadows, lying on the grass, and talking about everything from childhood memories to wild dreams. She told me about her love for the sea, how she always wanted to live near the coast and paint sunsets every evening. I told her about my secret dream of writing a book one day, though I had never admitted it to anyone before. "You should," she said with a soft smile. "You have the heart of a storyteller, Ethan. And hearts like that deserve to be heard." Her faith in me was something I never knew I needed. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and purple, Amelia turned to me with a serious look. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Anything," I replied. She hesitated before whispering, "Why me out of all the people you could love? Why did you choose me, with all my flaws and fears?" I took her hands in mine. "Because when I first saw you, standing outside that bookstore, you looked at the sky as if you were searching for something. And in that moment, I realized I was searching for something too. You thought about the world when no one else did. You thought about me before I even knew your name. Amelia, you're not my choice. You're my destiny." Tears glistened in her eyes, but this time, they were tears of joy. She leaned in, resting her forehead against mine. "I thought about you, Ethan, every day. Even when I was afraid. Even when I tried to run from my feelings. You've been in my heart all along." And for the first time, we kissed. A kiss that tasted of promises, healing, and forever. But life wasn't done testing us. A month later, Amelia received an invitation to showcase her paintings in Paris, one of the biggest opportunities of her career. I was overjoyed for her, but I noticed the worry in her eyes. "What's wrong?" I asked. She bit her lip. "It's a 3-month residency program. I'd have to move to Paris, and leave you behind." My heart sank. 3 months without her felt impossible. But I knew I couldn't hold her back. "Amelia, you have to go," I said firmly. "This is your dream. And I'll be here, waiting. Thinking about you every single day." Her eyes softened. "And what if you stop thinking about me?" I smiled. "Impossible. You're in every thought I have." The day she left for Paris was harder than I imagined. I stood at the airport, watching her walk away, her figure growing smaller with every step. She turned once, waving at me with a trembling smile, and I waved back, forcing my tears to stay hidden. The first week without her felt empty. I still went to the bookstore, still walked the same streets, but everything seemed dull without her presence. We spoke every night over video calls, but it wasn't the same as having her beside me. One night, she showed me her new studio in Paris through the camera. Canvases filled the room, each one brighter than the last. "Ethan," she said, her eyes sparkling, "for the first time, I'm painting without fear. And it's because of you. Because you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Hearing that filled me with pride. But it also made me realize something: I couldn't live without her. So, after 2 months, I made a decision. I booked a flight to Paris without telling her. When I arrived, I went straight to the gallery where her paintings were being displayed. The place was crowded, filled with art lovers admiring her work. And there she was standing gracefully in a simple white dress, her hair falling over her shoulders, her eyes glowing with confidence. I watched as people praised her paintings, shaking her hand, congratulating her. But all I saw was the girl I fell in love with outside a bookstore, the girl who thought too much, felt too deeply, and changed my life forever. When our eyes finally met across the room, she froze in shock. Then, tears welled up as she rushed toward me. "Ethan!" she cried, throwing her arms around me. "What are you doing here?" I held her tightly, whispering in her ear, "I couldn't wait anymore. I thought about you every second, Amelia. And then I realized I don't just want to think about you. I want to live with you, love you, and never let you go." She pulled back, her face glowing with joy. "Do you mean that?" I nodded. "I love you, Amelia. More than words, more than time, more than distance. I don't care where in the world you are, I'll be there. Always." The crowd around us began clapping, moved by the scene unfolding before their eyes. But in that moment, it felt like the world disappeared, leaving only the two of us. That night, as we walked along the Seine River, she held my hand tightly. "You know," she whispered, "when I was younger, I used to imagine a love where someone would think about me even when I wasn't around. I thought it was just a dream, too much to ask for. But then you came. And now, it's real." I kissed her forehead, smiling. "Amelia, you'll never have to wonder again. Because no matter where you are, no matter what happens, you'll always know I'm thinking about you." Years later, when people ask me how I knew Amelia was the one, I always say the same thing. Because before she ever loved me, she thought about me. And that's where love truly begins, in a thought, in a moment, in a heart that dares to care. And every time I look at her, painting with the same light in her eyes that I saw the very first day, I know one thing for certain: destiny was right. She was always meant to be mine.